Were Queen Elizabeth II still alive, she would probably recoil at the gargoyle, just like we common folk. But the Queen, after her 70 years of reign in protecting tradition, would especially appreciate the gargoyle that has protected traditions for 500 years of reign. From the 13th century to the 18th century, before the drain pipe was in use, the gargoyle would divert the rain from the roof and away from the precious mortar that held the masonry together. And the gargoyle supposedly could ward off some evil spirits. The Biltmore estate has its own brand of gargoyles. Some are functional and some are just decorative. I would like to introduce you to a gargoyle that's close to home. A bed gargoyle. When I would go to my grandparents' house, as a little boy, I would be stuck on the bottom floor, and I would have to hear my granddaddy snore. When I became a little bit older as a boy, I wanted to venture up to the second floor away from granddad's snoring. Now, this house dated back to the 1820s. It had spirits of 3 preachers, 1 educator, 2 enslavers, and a multitude of farmers. But I wasn't concerned about those spirits. I just wanted to avoid the snoring spirit in my granddad on the lower floor. So I went up to the bed gargoyle, and he protected me to have a good night's sleep. That gargoyle was quite a family heirloom. When my folks wanted to downsize just to 1 guest room with a brass bed, they asked if my family would be interested in the bed gargoyle. We readily agreed because we needed more beds, and my oldest daughter inherited that gargoyle bed that protected her sleep while she lived at home. When she moved on, my second daughter, Chloe, was anxious to inherit that bigger room and that bigger bed. But on occasion, she would complain of not getting enough sleep. I even saw her on occasion during the night on the floor, asleep with the sheets and blankets. She never would admit it, but I would imagine that gargoyle bed had maybe given her a fright during the night. Chloe was anxious to leave that bed and our home behind within a year of graduating from high school. She took off and got married and moved into an apartment. But she and her husband had no real bed, just an air mattress. Within 4 weeks, I consulted with my parents. They offered to exchange the gargoyle bed for their brass bed in the guest room. I knew Chloe would be happy. And indeed, just a week later, After she had recovered from COVID, she and her hubby came over with their mask and their gloves, and we disassembled that brass bed in my parents' house, took it to their apartment and assembled it, went back to my house, disassembled the gargoyle bed, and assembled it at my folks' house. I knew then that gargoyle bed was right where it needed to be, where it could help protect my parents. You see, my mom has more in common with the Queen than just having arrived into her 90s. She too is a protector of tradition. And ever since getting that gargoyle bed, she has been reminiscing back to her childhood days of being under the watchful care of her parents and the gargoyle bed.